Your factory LS cam bearings are trash. LS cam bearings. Let's talk about them. This video is for the guys that are unsure if they want to change their cam bearings or not. What we have here is the LQ9, Gen 3 block. We have the floating flat tops, Gen 4, rods and pistons. I'll show you what I'm talking about. I got this engine cheap because it spun a cam bearing. Yes, you guessed it, the center one. Let's take a look. Did it wreck the block? Nope. Block is unscathed. You still see the shadowing of the bearing where it was located. This block is fine. This is the cam bearing that spun. Let's get it down up in there here. It's fine. It's serviceable. Nothing wrong with this block. Take a look at the camshaft. Let's bring her over here. Gently set her down so I don't wreck the block. All right. Take a look at our camshaft. Right there. There's the center lobe, the one that spun. It's not even all that bad. Let's bring her out here. Let's talk about this some more. I know I'm gonna hate for this video, but I'll explain myself. So there's the journal. Here's the one that spun the cam bearing. Here, let me turn the light on, hold on. I gotta zoom in to do that. Oh, there we go. Some striping. Striping, but not that bad. Catch your fingernail a little bit on it. Let's talk about the cam bearings now. Let's put this cam over here. That cam's junk. All right. Why am I bad-mouthing the LS cam bearings, and why do I think they spin? Well, there's a couple reasons. First reason is they have a seam. Okay, so what? That means at one point in time this was flat and it was rolled. Well, if you look, see the marks on the outside of the cam bearing? Notice how the inside of the cam bearing is pretty much untouched. It's pressed into position. And you notice on all the factory cam bearings, the outer portion of the bearing itself is the only thing keeping it in the bore of the block. Okay? It's the only thing that's keeping the bearing in the bore of the block. So whatever force, pressure it has exerted on the outside of that bearing, because this actually has a concave, dips down. It dips down because how these are made. They were flat steel. They're flat steel, punched out, rolled into shape. And I actually have one here that was starting to spin. I'll kind of show you what I'm got going on. They lose their grip, their ability to hold into the block. Hold on. And they get deformed. See how that moves? They lose their strength. They lose their holding power. They lose their holding power, and then they spin in the block. That's the bore of the bearing that spun, right there. Still good. Factory bearing. No bueno. So, to all the guys that say, don't look at the bearings, don't change the bearings, run the bearings, I totally disagree. Cam bearings are cheap, economical, they're affordable, whatever word you want to say. If you're down this far, go buy some bearings. I'll talk about these in a second. There's some information that you want to know. But I'm going to take a second here to get all the haters commenting Don't touch cam bearings. Don't touch LS cam bearings. Well, change them. They're junk. Okay, now that I pooped on the LS cam bearings, the factory ones, what's the cure? Well, aftermarket. Why the aftermarket? Let's take a look at them. Now this bearing set, actually I got to talk about this a bit more. There's two sets here. Okay, these two sets are for the first design. Those two sets are for the second and third design. All right, what does that mean? It means these two outer bearings are different outer diameters. I'll kind of show you here. This is the first design. It's kind of slider in here. That's the front bearing. Loosey-goosey. Okay, go over here. This is the second design. Nice, you gotta press it in. So here's some trickery for you. These two kits are first design for the Gen 3. This is a Gen 3 also, but it's an LQ9. The bores are opened up. This bore and this bore. The center bore is the same. Now that is kind of cool because what you can do is you can buy a bearing kit, a second design, and a first design, and you could put the second design into the first design kit. You now have a wider bearing, an OEM, considerably wider. And you also have a bigger oil hole. Okay, let's talk about these bearings some more. Gen 3, first design, different diameters. The center diameter is the same, they're all gens. The center bearing is the same, outer diameter for all designs. These two outer bearings are different diameters. Okay. So if you have a Gen 3 block, with the first design bearing, get yourself aftermarket. These do not have a seam. These are made in the same diameter. This is flat. It's also wider than the OEM Chevy GM bearing. Not by much, but enough. Now, this LQ9 has the second design. I think one of these kits is the third design and one kit's the second design. You guys look up the numbers. But here's the bonus on that. Look how much wider that bearing is. Oil hole is massive, and these bearings are made in the proper diameter right from the start. They're not made out of a flat stamped piece of steel, you know, backer metal. Then of course you put your copper, and then your aluminum, but they're manufactured round to begin with. They maintain the grip on the bore of the block. These do not. These are gripping the block on the outer edges. And they do loosen up. And they do loosen up. See that? These cam bearings lose their grip in the block and they come right out. If you Google LS cam bearing failures, you'll see, oh, focus, that you'll see that they're always split. They're always corkscrewed out and they're walked out, and this is always separated. So change your cam bearings. Now, if you don't want to change your cam bearings because of the cost of the tooling and the labor and the work, if you think the machine shop has to do it, I'll show you an easy tool, homemade tool. So once again, this is an LQ9 second design. That bearing is considerably wider. It'll grab the block better. It'll maintain its pressure. It'll maintain its grip. Now these are the numbers for, I think, 2nd gen and 3rd gen, or sorry, not gen. 2nd design, 3rd design. I'm not too sure which one's which. But they could both work in a 2nd design block. These are the 1st design. I'm missing a bearing out of the one kit because I destroyed a bearing. But that's okay. I got some Gen 3 stuff that we're building. We're building an LQ4. We're building a LM7 and then an LY4, 4.8 liter. I think that's an LY4. Whatever, doesn't matter. Anyway, let's get back to the cam bearings. GM cam bearings, factory LS stuff. Throw them out, change them. Okay, tool time. Chunk of all thread. That's longer than the block. All right, perfect. Some nuts, the thread. Okay, perfect. Old junk camshaft. Now on this old junk camshaft, cut the front off. This front bearing journal, cut her right off. You need this piece. Okay, get rid of this camshaft, it's junk. Oh, loud. Okay. Cam gear. Cut out the center. Now this is a 2nd design cam gear. This is a Gen 3 center. If you recognize that, that was a cam gear at one point in time. I just cut the big sprocket part off. Okay, here we go. I just cut the big sprocket part off. All right, and I buffed down a bearing and I stuck it over the nose. If you look, that nose right there, it tapers just a little bit. It's the same diameter as the cam. Hold on. Stick that back on. You can see it's about the same diameter. Okay, kind of see where I'm going with this. Okay, grab that off. Get rid of this thing. Shush it. Okay. This is what you wind up with. This is the front journal of a junk cam. This is the front journal of a junk cam. This here is actually a buff down cam gear. This is this. This is this. And it was this. Well, the old design with the circles, with the holes. Okay. Then I bolted factory bolts to buff this down so it fits. So you buff that down so it fits in the block. But so it grabs. Sorry, but so it grabs the bearing. Okay, now all these cam bearings have the same ID. It's just the OD that's different. So this will work on Gen 3 and Gen 4. Design 1, 2, and 3 bearings. Okay, so what's next? Buff down a bearing, jam it on this sprocket. That's your centering tool. This is the wrong size bearing for this block. It's for the Gen 3 block, but you get the idea. I'll clean up another bearing and swap that out. Okay, so what you do. So, see if I can do this one-handed. Get my flashlight out of there. This will be your centering bar, your centering cone. Okay. Then you run. Okay, so you have the new cam bearing. Make sure you line up your oil hole. Make sure you line up the oil hole. You'll have a paint pen mark along here and paint pen mark where your hole is. You have your press tool and an old bearing. And then you just tighten down that nut and it'll press the cam bearing in place. Perfectly centered too. No hammering, no muss, no fuss. I'll set this tool up for the 2nd design. So I got to buff down some bearings for the 2nd design. These are for the 1st design. The ones already buffed down are for the 1st design. One is pressing bearings in my LQ4. But I'll show you this in action. Further on, we're going to put LS3 heads on an LQ9. Attempt to put LS3 heads on an LQ9. We're going to see if we have piston to valve clearance issues, which I'm thinking we will. But that's a problem. For the future, go ahead and throw these GM, OEM, LS cam bearings away. I know those are fighting words. Use the factory cam bearings, or don't change the cam bearings, or don't look at the cam bearings. Guys, just come on. You could tell, right? Guys, just come on. You could clearly see the deficiencies in these things. You see that dip? If you can see that or not, how much it's dipped. It has a concave. I can even feel it. These lose grip on the block. Right there. See? Didn't even mess up the block. That's fine. They lose grip on the block. They come apart. They loosen up here. Then they simply just walk themselves out of the bore. They grab the camshaft on the way out. And then you're here. Okay, one important thing you got to consider when you're putting these bearings in. That cam bore's got a taper. That helps the cam bearing slide in place. Sharp edge on that one. Side is a taper, sharp edge, and this one is reversed. There's a taper right there and a sharp edge. Watch that. Make sure you're putting the cam bearing, make sure you slide the bearings in the right direction. See that slight taper right there, and where that part, it's sharp edge. So the cam bearing goes in this way. So the back, was it the front two? The back two go in this way, and the front three go in this way. So I have the first cam bearing kind of stuck in there, just by fingers. Pushed in by fingers. I lined up the oil hole. Lined up the oiling hole. See that or not? Hold on. Make sure you line up the oiling hole. Let's see if I get light in there. It's not really focusing, but you get the idea. Okay. Put a little driver tool. I'll kind of fumble it through here. A little awkward, not that bad. Oh, actually, I gotta move it back a little bit. Take our driver bearing, kind of plunk that down. Take our little tool, put that together. We'll do it with one hand. Hold on. Okay, so our driver bearing kind of fumbled on there. Kind of get her into our bearing, get her into our new bearing. Kind of position it in place. Takes a little fumbling. Okay. Give it a little push. Gotta get it squared a little bit. Okay. I'll take this guy. Take this guy here, we'll run him down through here. So do this one-handed here. Did you go? Hold on. So we slid her through. Okay. Let's back this off just a little bit. Okay. I'll take one of our washers. Slide over top. Another washer. Slide that over top. We'll get our nut. Spin her on the end. There we go. And we just keep turning. And it presses itself in. Full control. No hammering on it. No getting it all cockeyed sideways. Just a couple tools. Just a tool made from some simple items I had lying around. I can stop anytime and check the progress. Go ahead and I'll press all the cam bearings in this thing. So we got the first cam bearing in there. If you look down in here, you can see light through the oiling hole. Right there. So that oiling hole is perfectly lined up. So, carry on with the rest of the set. We'll get that all put together. Now if you notice the oiling hole right there, well, that's the top side of the block. It's another thing to think about, is that the cam actually pushes down. So when you line these up, oiling hole's right there. You have the other oiling hole on the top side. If you line her up like that, you got the oiling hole on the bottom side. I like putting oiling hole on the top side. Of course, obviously the oiling hole to the oil port, and then rotate it, position it so that the other one is right there, on the top side of the block. Because the cam is pushing this way. You want as much bearing surface as you can. So there you go. I shall proceed, move on, carry, tele forth, all that other, yeah, stuff. There. So for a little bit of money, a little bit of time, and a simple tool, you change out your cam bearings to a far superior cam bearing. Get rid of that factory stuff. Don't know why. I really don't know why people want to continue on not changing cam bearings. Next step, see if the cam fits. I don't know why people don't want to change their cam bearings. It's unreal. Next step, see if the camshaft slides in. This thing's been sitting in the basement for years. I don't think this camshaft's available anymore. I think it's discontinued, actually. Where's the part number? This guy right here, hold on. Well, it's super huge. Good enough for what we're doing.